I am Jeff Foxworthy, and welcome to Gamekeeper Podcast. If you want to learn more about farming for wildlife and habitat management, then, buddy, you are in the right place. Join the Gamekeeper crew direct from Mossy Oak Land Enhancement Studio as they discuss the latest wildlife and habitat management practices, news, and, of course, hunting. There's no telling what you'll learn, but I'm going to tell you, I bet it's interesting. Enjoy.
We're live in 3, 2, 1.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we are one more time.
Back in the studio.
West Point, Mississippi.
Really good energy today.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it is. This one's been a long time overdue, although we've had Kyle here before.
Yeah.
But we've been talking about getting him back because he's one of the favorites.
No doubt about it.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and introduce. On the couch, we've got Kyle Lybarger,
There you go, Bobby.
the Native Habitat Project guy.
Guru.
You see him.
Guru.
all
That's
The
a great way to
guru.
describe it.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
He's all over TikTok, Instagram, saving butterflies. He's doing all kind of great.
Hey, he's the Dolly Mama.
Yeah. And next to him, we've got Luke Chaffee.
There we go.
His
Yeah.
lovely assistant.
nailed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not to be confused with the Lake Chaffee.
Yeah, or
Yeah.
Fort Chaffee, which
Yeah.
is an actual real place.
Or like I've become Chaffy.
Yeah. Well, okay. So this is going good. This is going good. But we're so excited to have y'all. It's amazing watching you on Instagram and the projects that you get so passionate about.
Yeah.
It's things we love too. We're cheering for you. It's amazing what you've done.
Well, I appreciate it. It's just, I guess, day by day, just trying new things. So we're about to start several new projects. So it's been a good year for us, I guess.
Well, we're going to learn about some of those new projects and
You have earned the accolades too, my friend.
All right,
Very
I've got
much so.
a good question.
yeah,
Now.
in a short amount of time, sir. It's amazing.
Well, he's telling us earlier, though, I'm like, he wrote this plan out when he was 10.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was into wildlife more as a kid. But,
Yeah.
I mean, which is why I'm into native habitats, because that's how you manage for wildlife. But yeah, ever since my earliest memories, so been into wildlife and wanting to manage them. So
Yeah, we talk about that wonderment, and Toxie talks about it, Daniel talks, we all talk about it. That only thing I can relate it to is walking around as a kid just wanting to know what everything was, what it did, and how to do something with it.
So yeah, the point he made was like, and you've heard me say it, people have heard me say this, maintaining your sense of wonderment you had as a child for things, which, hunting, fishing, whatever, family,
Right.
friends, things you enjoy. Your work it's hard to do sometimes. But it's so easy when you, and I don't want to come across wrong with this, is speaking my own conviction, when you touch the face of God out there in nature and caring for the earth like we're charged to do. It was just something that, how could you ever lose your sense of wonderment for the way all that works?
Yeah, all of it works.
So, to me, it's the most, even in our position, hunting, fishing, gamekeepers, it's the most important thing
Yeah.
that we talk about.
it's crazy because I get called an expert all the time, and I feel like I'm the furthest thing from an expert because there's so many things that I still don't know everything about, like birds and butterflies and lichens and ferns, and I mean you go on and on, mussels, crayfish. There's like a million things that I feel like I don't know as much about as I should. Mushrooms, another one. I mean, there's so many things, like you never run out of something new to learn about, especially out in nature. There's always something new to
That's right.
grab your interest.
Game keeping.
And it's
be
interesting how
interested.
you kind of seem to gravitate to these things that are about to go, maybe, I don't know if extinct is the right word, but there's not much of it left, and you recognize it, you see it on the side of the road somewhere, and then you become very passionate about, we got to save this.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think that comes from being like on so many different properties. You kind of subconsciously realize like this is one I never ever see. Like I know how uncommon this species is, and sometimes maybe it's a species that's pretty common in other states or other parts of the state. But you can kind of, after seeing so many places, like this one is pretty rare around here. I never see it, and there might only be one or two populations. There's so many plants that I know of that I only see on one or two roadsides or one or two properties in North Alabama, and it's kind of alarming to how many places that they used to be.
It's frustrating because it seems like the more you learn, the more you see these things that aren't right.
Yes.
The more you notice them.
Yes.
And sometimes I kind of wish I could backpedal and just not know enough about it, so I'm not angry in my mind about things. And I'm sure you think the same way, and a lot of your listeners, followers think the same way thanks to you. But I guess it's a good thing, because when we see it and we know that this is a problem, we can kind of help make the change happen.
Yeah, you can't care about what you don't know about, and there's a bunch of Aldo Leopold quotes about that. So
Yeah. So I'm looking at both y'all on the couch. Raise your hand or say yay if you've ever slowed down, stopped, and helped a turtle get across the road.
oh yeah,
Hey.
Yeah.
I actually was in Columbus yesterday, and a guy had the whole road blocked off and was helping the turtle across the road. So it's good to see that.
It's got to be exciting if you're a turtle, though. All of a sudden, somebody picks
Your
you up.
savior comes out. Yeah. He wasn't picking him up. Interesting though, he was just blocking traffic. I was like,
Letting him do it.
Yeah, like get him on out of the way.
And I can say this, when I was younger, I did the opposite.
Were you running over turtles?
Snakes, turtles, and I didn't think twice about
I mean,
it.
I'll still stop on a snake if it's the right kind.
But
Hey, Blake Shelton got canceled on social media one year because he said he aimed for box turtles when he was driving around.
Oh yeah, I'll get you.
got to be careful now. But
So
we
look,
live and learn.
let's do this. We're so excited to have y'all. Thank you for driving down here. Let's get Dudley to ask some rapid fire questions real quick.
Oh, already.
Get this
Okay.
thing started.
Okay, so
Rapid fire is brought to you by.
Our buddies at Nutrient.
That's right,
That's
yeah.
right.
are you ready? You've done this before, right?
Yeah.
They
Okay.
both answering, or is just one?
Let's just do one.
Okay.
I've got some questions for Luke later on. All right. What is your current favorite Neil Diamond song?
Oh no, I couldn't name one. I couldn't name one.
Look at Bobby.
It's supposed to be quick. Fried green tomato or tomato sandwich?
Fried green tomato.
Buttermilk, yes or no?
If I don't drink it. but
Okay, that's a no.
As an
Then that-
ingredient, and
That's a no.
no.
Sorry.
no.
Bobby,
I like
I mean-
2%
Yeah.
or whole.
Dudley's
Name a naturalized, non-native plant that you really aren't that mad at.
Oh, that's a good one.
Not
Oh,
that mad.
I
You
think
can
there's
still
a-
be mad at it.
I think there's a couple. Maybe.
I'm gonna write them down.
Maybe. I don't know.
He's scared to answer.
Yeah,
this.
I really am. I really am. Oxide. I mean, I want to say oxide daisy off the bat, but there's one.
Yeah.
There's one the other day that I was just thinking that about, and I'm trying to remember which one that was, because it was the pollinators do use it, and I can't remember it now. I feel like it was a species that we have a native version of as well.
Is it Brazil vervain?
But yeah, that's a good one. The pollinators do go crazy over that one, but it can get aggressive.
It's still not supposed to be here.
Yeah,
Anyway,
yeah.
we move on.
There's several.
Name
not rapid fire.
Name a genus that is so important to ecosystems that if it was to disappear, you would instantly see, not instantly, but you'd see major repercussions more quickly than some of the others.
Oh gosh. Are we? Wait, there's so many things going through my head because I'm thinking plants or animals or
Plants.
Okay, plants. All right. Man, I think oaks.
That's what I had in my mind.
And I'm saying that I'm just favoring Dudley there.
Yeah, like oak nerds.
Yeah.
Trying to give him the answer he wants
All
to
right.
hear.
Do you take supplements? Yes or no?
No.
Name an ecosystem or area you would love to visit but haven't.
Oh man, I've always wanted to go to Australia, out of the country, Australia, in the country, probably the Northeast.
Okay. Out of the southern yellow pines, which one intrigues you the most?
Ooh, I like shortleaf a lot.
Okay. You walk into a gas station and see the crocks of boiled peanuts. Are you reaching for the Cajun spicy or the original?
Cajun.
Cajun.
Name, okay, and last but not least, name a municipality or state who you think deserves a hat tip from Kyle for leading by example?
Ooh, man, there's several.
Name them.
Yeah, Kentucky does a good job with their interstates. They only mow like 30 foot out, and then the rest is like native grasses.
Okay.
I think on their numbered highways. North Carolina seems to be like, and environmentally, maybe this is just in some areas, but they seem to be.
They got to
far
work on
ahead.
their miscanthus on the Blue Ridge Parkway.
They do,
but other
don't
than
they?
that,
they do.
But they're banning
doing
like,
good.
They're banning Bradford pears and things, right?
Yeah,
So, I
well,
mean,
that-
that's-
Oh, nice.
That's South Carolina, I think. But like in North Carolina, you can't mow all the roadsides because half of them are like straight up banks.
right?
Oh,
Yeah.
So that's another. They got a good roadside in some parts of North Carolina. But I want to say another one too. I can't. I don't know. Missouri. Missouri seems like they're real far ahead as far as natives. and-
Okay. Yeah.
don't know. Maybe that's just mine.
I was in Baltimore and saw a bunch of really cool natives incorporated in the landscapes around that town. So anyway,
I don't know if
that's
it's
it.
much that they're far ahead or they're well behind from like a development standpoint. 'Cause, like when we were riding through Missouri, I was just like, man, this is crazy that the houses are far and spread out. And I think John was just like, my closest neighbor is 37 miles. And he was, yeah, I got 37 neighbors. And I'm like,
That was Kentucky.
man, yeah, it's Kentucky, but I was just people. I'm like, we got houses with your neighborhood with 137 houses in them.
Yeah.
So I was like, careful what you ask for,
That's one of my number one priorities is space.
Yeah.
I cannot stand to be in a crowd or around a crowd or
Well,
crowded.
So was that it?
That's it.
Yeah, that was well done.
Y'all wanted a little off the wall, and
Oh,
that's
those
what
are
you
really
get.
good.
Yeah.
Really good.
I'm not good at rapid fire.
Right.
I don't
Because you
give
want to
fast
think. You want
answers.
to think.
Yeah, yeah. So look, let's get down in the weeds here. How
down
in
in
the
the
world
natives.
did you get so interested in this stuff? Were you classically trained? Like, did you go off to college to learn about all this stuff?
No, I failed botany in 2013 at LMU at Lincoln Memorial in Tennessee, and but my botany teacher didn't take us outside once. We didn't actually look at any real plants, so it was all in a classroom, and I can't work like that. I have to be outside seeing things. But I don't know. I feel like it was one of those things. I feel like everything in life, there was like a million roads that all just like intersected at the right time. Like there's a bunch of different. It's like it feels kind of like it was inevitable sometimes as well. But I don't know. A bunch of things. I like managing wildlife. I was in forestry school. We did a lot of prescribed burning at Alabama A&M with the fire dogs. I was working for the State Fish and Wildlife while I was in school, and so we got to do a lot of burning and managing for wildlife there. I was managing some hunting properties on my own. I think we may have talked about on some past podcasts, and then and I don't know. That's it. Really, I can remember the first plant while I was out on that property that I was like mad that I didn't know
What it was.
what it was. Yeah, it was rattlesnake master, and it was like the leaves are like real leathery and it's almost like yucca.
Yeah, it does look like yucca.
And then you see the flowers and they're real showy, and you're like, how is something this showy like nobody's talking about it? How do I not know about this? I didn't learn about this in school. I hadn't learned about this in the 3 years I've worked for the State Fish and Wildlife. And it's because it wasn't growing many places, but that was like I don't know. That's really, it started there, and then it was just like everything new that I came across, I was determined to learn what that species was. And I think I probably made a point to learn a new plant every time I was outside on a property, just subconsciously, until it kind of, just snowballed into, where I'm at today. And there's still things I need to learn. A lot. There's still a lot of plants I need to learn, and there's a lot of plants that I probably will never learn. Things like sedges and lichens, and man, there's so much that I'm just like, I'm not even going to try yet. Maybe one day when I'm
There's so many
or something.
stages. Oh my gosh.
yes.
So do you have like a suggestion if somebody wants to learn about all these? Is there an app or something? Or
I just showed Toxie it earlier. iNaturalist is like so easy. It's the best.
I already downloaded it when you showed me.
And they have a website that's really good, but they also have several apps. They have one that's like more focused for kids. It's called Seek. And and you can just point the camera at anything on Seek, and it'll tell you what that plant is or animal or bug. On iNaturalist, you have to actually like take a couple pictures of a plant. It'll tell you what it is. It's usually the top 3. If I usually try to take pictures of plants that are in flower because they're gonna, it's obviously gonna be more accurate that way. And then you can either share the location where you're at, or you can obscure it or make it private. But if you share the location where you're at, once several trained like botanists or other folks on iNaturalist verify that that's what the species is, it's then used for science. They use that for like creating range maps, and it's a really great tool. And that's the one that I know all botanists use. So if botanists are using that one, then that's the one I'm gonna use as well. And it's just one of the best tools out there.
So let me ask this real quick. So if Toxie takes a couple of pictures of something and loads it up, could he turn around one day and there'd be some plant
nerd show
standing
up?
there? I mean, it's not open to the public, is it?
No. It's like, so that's why you can obscure it. So for science, they'll know where it's at, but the public won't know where it's at. So a lot of these observations end up being obscured because you don't want people poaching them, especially if it's a rare plant. I'm always going to obscure it. So if you look up leafy prairie clover in Alabama, you're going to see a bunch of dots over several counties. And all those dots may have been from the same location, but the app just spreads them out everywhere so people can't actually find the location where it's at. But you can also make projects. So like there's one for us like Molten Valley Savannas, or certain property owners will have a whole project for their property. And anybody that makes an observation in that area, it's then that plant or animal or insect or mushroom, whatever, is then added to that project. And so you can kind of like, if I'm in a new area like the Nashville Basin, Nashville Glades, I can look up a project and I can see all the plants before I even go to Nashville. I can see all the plants that I might possibly see in that area.
Oh, that's cool.
Obviously it might be more of the common ones or more of sometimes there's non-natives people observe, but a lot of times there's rare ones as well. And it's I use it every day. It's a great app.
We are living in an age, especially now, there's almost no excuse for the people that love their place or love nature to not get one of these apps. There's quite a few. I think from what he's telling me, this may be the best one, but I already had one before. And I mean, you can literally walk around out there with the book open. I mean, you take a picture, it tells you. In fact, if I'm shopping for flowers and stuff to plant at the house, you take a picture and it'll give you, the one I use, it'll give you more information about growing it and the do's and don'ts. And what's amazing is too, with wildflowers you're propagating, some of them are poisonous. In fact, quite a few are. You want to know.
Especially to pets.
Yeah. So you want to know if you're going to like cut some for cut flowers or grow some, try to have them in your yard or something. It just, all that information's at your fingertips, where before you'd have to we didn't even carry cameras around except, have to go develop film. It's the age we're in. And the point I was trying to get to is, with all this, we sit in this position of so much knowledge on land, like just the real estate business and land and managing land and everything to do with it. It's our love in life. But there's literally, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, there's nothing more important to making your land the best it can be. There's literally nothing more important than managing what's already there, than anything else you can do. And it's also the biggest void of information. So think about it. It's the most important and it's the least understood. So that's something for everybody. And it's not easy. But in today's world, you can make it a lot easier with the apps.
You can.
By listening to people like Kyle, or in Dudley, quite frankly, can hang with the best of them.
It's easy to be like, say you went to school, got your PhD in some identifying plants or whatever, and then this app comes along and it almost renders all your education useless.
I mean, it knows more than you do.
But on the same note, you've got to be grateful for that, because there's so many people out there that didn't know. And when they get interested in these cool plants, they get interested in trying to conserve them or trying to manage for them.
Builds a community.
And so if there's anything good that's come out of all this technology, that I can say that would be one of the main things is people being more aware of their surroundings.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how can you manage something, that you don't even know about? Like how can you manage, say you have an acre, how can you correctly manage it, or say, the burning you're doing, or say the mowing you're doing, or the herbicide treatments you're doing, or whatever you're doing to this piece of land? How can you say it's actually benefiting the land if you don't know what's there, and you're not able to like say, oh, hey, this is switchgrass, this is rattlesnake mash, this is butterfly weed. Here's how they're responding to each thing I do. You can't really make those management decisions if you don't know what's there and how it's responding to what you're implementing. But that's just I don't know. I saw a video a few weeks ago. It's and I won't say names, but it was this guy was managing a savanna, and the savanna was just looked like it was a monoculture of this one type of grass species, and he said he didn't know what kind of grass it was, but he said that it was likely a native grass that was here before bison, and he released it by opening up this canopy, and he's running livestock on it, and this place was a monoculture of this annual fescue, and I'm like, how can you even say your management decisions are right if you don't know what he didn't know it was fescue? I don't even know if he knows it's fescue now, but I could tell from the video it was very obvious that it was a fescue that thrives on disturbance, and so he opened it up and he disturbed it, and that's what came back. And so if he would have known that's what it was, he could have got ahead of that and treated it and promoted the native grasses. But it's not his fault. It's like he just didn't know.
Right. And I don't think anybody's just trying to be destructive.
No. But you can't you can't manage it properly if you don't know what's there. And so I think that's really the most important part of managing a property is knowing what you're dealing with, and then being able to watch the responses.
I've listened to another podcast you were on, and one thing that was interesting to me, we were asking kind of what led you to all of this, and one thing that you enjoy doing is identifying all these grasslands, but like glades specifically, and you ruined one. You ruined a section of a good area, trying to do the right thing at the time, and then it hit you like, oh my gosh, there was a lot of rare. Yeah. And that was kind of what turned you on to this whole mission of yours.
Yeah, that was the property I saw rattlesnake master on, and it was on the trail going down to this area that was an opening that I was, obviously, if you're going to put a food plot on a property, it has to be in the only open spot. And so, back then that was my idea. These days it'd be, all right, where's the spot that has all the invasives? I'm going to nuke that spot and put a food plot there, and obviously make a bad place better. But this in this case, it was a really high quality ecosystem. I didn't know what it was. I just knew it was open. I cut down cedar trees all around it and made it bigger, and then I sprayed it, tried to add some compost topsoil to it, and it all washed away off this glade because it's just flat rock. and then tried to plant a food plot on it. Nope, nothing happened, luckily. But it took it years to recover. Finally, now it's better than it was before. But hundreds of species out there, and this is still one of the most diverse glades in North Alabama. Is this glade that I'm managing, and we've been doubling it, tripling it in size, managing it better now. But man, the turkeys and the deer on that spot. I got my first pictures of turkeys out there. I guess last year. I had a big group of gobblers out there this year when it snowed. They were out in this glade, eating seeds off these plants and stuff. And so I don't know. It was kind of a hard lesson learned, but I was like, I know I never want to do that again. I know I never want to take something that has hundreds of species that have been here for thousands of years and try to make it into 2 or 3 species. And so I think making a choice about where you're implementing this stuff on properties is the most important. And in my opinion, taking an old field of fescue or old, an area that's just a big privet thicket and clearing it out and starting it over and, that's where I put food plots now, is in those kind of places. So try to make something that's the worst spot on the property, a better spot on the property, and try to make all right spots on the property the best spots on the property.
Makes a lot of sense.
So, Cal, look, I may be the only person listening that doesn't know. What is a glade? What constitutes That's not a word I hear often.
Yeah, it's a area of just flat, exposed rock, really shallow soil. If it does have soil on it, it's real shallow. But a glade there's glades and barrens, and so barrens are pretty much dry year round. These places look almost identical, but glades will have, they're real wet during the wet season, like the Everglades, and so maybe not that much water, but they even just a thin, eighth of an inch amount of water on it, or just moist soils throughout the wet season, like the usually, which is during winter usually here, but that's what makes it a glade. And so you have these plants that are adapted to just really wet ground in the winter and the spring, and then just extremely, extremely dry, almost like desert-like in the summer and fall. And so these plants have to be adapted to just totally opposite conditions. And so luckily, you don't find a lot of invasives on them. Sericea lespedeza loves glades, so that's one invasive you see on them. But for the most part, it's only natives, plants that are really adapted to it. And you might see rattlesnake master growing on a glade, and it might be a foot tall. You take it home and plant it, in your yard, it might get, 4 or 5 foot tall, just huge. And so it might be stunted versions of plants, but they can exist there and complete their life cycles on glades.
Lanny, you got a question?
Yeah, we talk about fire a lot. We love burning. We love all that kind of stuff. And we've recently been having conversations. And actually, some of our listeners' questions are kind of pertaining to this. But, after a fire, and it might depend on where you're burning, does it make sense to try to seed behind that fire? And if it does, what kind of stuff are we talking about?
Yeah, that's a pretty good way to approach it. I think you're going to have better success if you do that during the fall or winter burns, because those seeds have to have that stratification period. But you could do that and just use native species to your area. That's and I don't know. That's such a tough question.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's so much gray area in this, because my neighbor to our leafy prairie clover site, he has a really nice glade in his front yard, and I went and knocked on his door one time and went out there and looked at it, and it was just beautiful. Echinacea everywhere, gray-headed coneflower everywhere, and I was like, man, this is an awesome glade. And he's like, yeah, I got a mix from Roundstone and planted it out here, and I was like, man, that's awesome. It's crazy to think that in this circumstance, I'm like, you shouldn't have done that, because I think everybody should get some seed from Roundstone and plant it at their house or plant it on their properties. But in this case, this was a really nice glade, and now we kind of
what was
lost
originally
context.
Here and what?
Yeah,
what was?
So luckily, I contacted Roundstone. I was like, hey, this guy ordered a mix from y'all on this day. What seeds were in it? And they were able to tell me, and so I knew which ones there were there naturally, and which plants there were introduced. So I don't know. That's a very weird circumstance, very odd. Planting native seeds wouldn't have been the right option. Most of the time, it is the right option though on places. But if you have an intact, really rare ecosystem, I probably would kind of be more careful about what you're introducing to it.
And would you think that'd be a mix of, like a ratio? If you just said grasses and forbs, is that a 50-50 kind of thing, or?
Well, not really. And it really depends on the area too. What's there already?
Right.
I usually try to refrain from as many native grasses up front, because it takes those grasses can become aggressive and kind of dominate it.
It could just take the one wrong one to take over everything.
Yeah. And
Like
so,
a la fescue.
yeah,
It's terrible.
sometimes it's like you plant it and you're like, there's so many native grasses that you have to come in and do some grass selective herbicides and strips,
To keep
spray
your
some of that.
forbs going.
Yeah.
To keep your forbs.
My little log loading projects that I've been working on at my farm. I'm trying to get rid of the grasses and get a bunch of good broadleafs going. And if I want to bring grasses back,
You can.
I'm gonna put some in.
Yeah.
So you think it'd be primarily forbs then would be?
That's how I'd start most places. And those native grasses are so important as structure for ground nesting birds. But those ground nesting birds really need the forbs for seeds and for insects. And so you really don't want it to be a grassland. You want it to be a forbland. You want it to have forbs and grasses. And then, but in other circumstances, like in my pasture right now, I have spots where I have gama grass, just a pretty good patch of gama grass. And when I burn, those areas are where I have very little woody encroachment happening. In the areas where I don't have a lot of native grasses, man, I'm getting ash and sweet gum coming back. And so I'm like, dang, I really need more native grasses down there to carry fire.
They burn hotter, maybe.
Yeah, they burn hotter. And so grasses are real handy in that circumstance. So it's like a prescription. It's like just like prescribed burning. What does this area need? What does this area need? Maybe these warm season grasses would be better for me in this area because I'm going to have more of a problem with woody encroachment and blackberries or whatever. And I need that extra heat when I run a fire through here to keep those at bay. But then maybe there's areas where you don't want that. You want more forbs, and it's just kind of. I hate to give that answer, but
that's
it
what I want
depends.
to know. It's not a one size fits all kind of thing. It depends.
It
We
depends.
get
It's
that
very
answer
common.
a lot. Yeah, it depends
when you're talking about such a
Yeah.
diverse.
Yeah.
So, Kyle, when you think about, you're a young guy, but when you think about when you really got interested in this stuff, do you think it's helped make you a better hunter or help you kind of connect the dots? And obviously it helps you manage your property better, but can you take it all the way out to being a better hunter?
Yeah, absolutely. I've become a worse hunter over the years, probably because because I got married and I don't get to go as often. But yeah, absolutely. I think it absolutely gives you a heads up. Like I probably shouldn't say this, but like if I'm hunting public land, I'm like I get on iNaturalist and I'm like, hey, where's a spot where somebody's seen a bunch of high quality natives like. And so I can get on iNaturalist, and sometimes it's obscured, sometimes it's not. I kind of check. But, if it's an area that has a lot of rattlesnake master, I keep saying that one, but like liatris and butterfly weeds and, coneflowers, native sunflowers and, really some high quality species. I'm like, okay, that's probably a pretty high quality area. Something's going to be using it. And so I think that can help you a lot. And then then of course, that's where Alan Summerford has me beat, because then you obviously still have to play into like, okay, well, where are those deer at right now, or where are the turkeys at right now, or I guess it doesn't matter as much for turkeys, but like where are they bedded compared to this high quality habitat? And I think Alan's way better at that than me. That's where I've always seemed to mess up. I'm always on the wrong side and catch them coming the wrong way.
I could see though how that could play into
100%.
helping you. I mean, I think it's worth everybody paying attention to this.
Oh,
for sure.
Dominantly important.
Kyle, was there somebody for either one of y'all that kind of was an inspiration when y'all were young that kind of helped your mind get interested in this stuff?
Yeah, I don't know. A bunch. I mean, my dad got me outdoors and in scouts and stuff, but I also watched a lot of Steve Irwin as a kid. So I think everybody in my generation did. So
Yep.
yeah, we're getting a lot of head nods over here.
We had that Marty Stauffer guy. Remember him?
Yeah, he looks like Rob. We figured that out the other day. The new Marty Stauffer.
Yeah.
So we do have a lot of questions from folks, and I guess we need to start on that. Our buddy Austin Stapleton has a really good question that I think a lot of other people would have. Just say maybe you live on 10 acres on the side of the highway and you got a big pasture, or you got a big opening near the house or near the cabin. So he says, let's say I have 10 acres to work with, not necessarily to hunt, but to make it the best possible habitat for wildlife, native plants and grasses. It's surrounded by other farms and yards. How can you keep invasives from taking over? Complete burn, till, and start over, spray. So I think he's just wanting to know, just for example, it's a big Bahia pasture.
Okay.
How would you get the ball rolling on getting a rectangle of native area going and how to manage it?
Man, Bahia is a tough one, but you're gonna have to hit it with some grass selective herbicides a lot, unless if you're wanting to keep like a native seed bank intact. If you don't think that you have many native like forbs that are going to come back, then you could just like broad spectrum herbicide spray the whole thing, and then come in and plant stuff. But it's I was going to say that it depends, but
it really does.
But if I was him, and if I was him too, if it was near my house, I'd pay extra attention to focusing on those areas that are more visible from like your driveway or from the road, and introducing a lot of like high quality native forbs to those areas. Even if you have to do it in sections, start with the sections closest to that are most visible, and just really baby those and make sure they're as showy as possible. And then maybe towards the interior, you do more native grasses, more more diverse mix, and maybe tackle that later on. But that's just me personally. There's a bunch of ways to go about it.
Oh yeah. I've heard of people laying a huge tarp out and letting everything die and get eaten by the earthworms and whatnot. And, it would be fun to see what comes back first, and then maybe decide to seed it. But if you're going for just something really showy and to show your neighbors that you're into natives and wildflowers, might be cool to just do a mix that's heavy on the.
Yeah. And you can do both too.
Yeah.
That's always an option. That's what I do on my place. So.
And then he wants to know, how would you keep invasives and things out of it?
So that's just going to be, you're going to have to tackle that individually. So as each species shows up or you see a new one, like I'd get on either Google's going to be your friend or Native Habitat Managers page on Facebook. Get in there and type in that species and see how other people are controlling it. Because there's going to be multiple ways to control each of those dozens and dozens of invasives. And somebody out there has found out the secret to tackling that one species. And so that's going to be the key, is focus on one invasive at a time, figure out how to tackle it and get it under control. Make sure it's not going to seed every year, because then you're just adding even more issues in the future. So at the very least, keep those invasives from going to seed if possible.
Good stuff.
I tell you, you kind of hit on it. And I had written down that I wanted you to explain the seed bank. It's so fascinating to me that there are seeds just laying there in the soil, waiting to be awakened, and all manner of seeds. And can you kind of tell us that story so that we can understand it?
Yeah. So I'll start. There's you have a seed bank and you have what I call a root bank. And so on the place where we've been managing this year, this glade. Originally out in the open on the power line, you'd have a ton of, really mature natural bred root. And then as you get into the woods, the shaded area, you have a lot of natural bred root too, but they look like two totally different plants. The sunny area is a real healthy plant, tons of leaves. The leaves are huge. In the shaded area, you have these little plants that may have like quarter-sized leaves, and they might have one or two leaves on a plant. They don't flower. They just come up and make a couple leaves each year. Tiny leaves. So they're really stunted. So when you open up that canopy, all of a sudden, this plant that you might not even have noticed being there and existing, it now has sunlight and all the requirements it needs to thrive. And so it's going to shoot up and flower and look like the rest of the plants. And sometimes that's what happens. It seems like it came up from the seed bank, but it's been growing there and just stunted for forever. But then also you have seed banks and seeds that have just existed, stayed in the soil for years, and it really depends on the species. But at lunch me and Mac were looking. I think there was like an American lotus seed, or not, it was like a Chinese lotus seed that was like 1,200 years old that germinated after 1,200 years. And that's just, I don't even understand it.
Yeah.
No.
So, but if you went out to a typical property, say one of Toxie's, and you could dig up a couple of feet of earth and sift through it, there potentially could be partridge pea and all these other things that you love so much. Those seeds are just laying there waiting for the right opportunity.
Yeah, and it's probably going to be inches. It's probably going to be the first inch or so of soil. And it's probably, you're going to have a lot of those annuals. Like partridge pea is a heavy seeder. It seeds a lot. So you're probably going to have a lot of that one. But yeah, you're going to have some long-lived perennials, most likely, that might not make as many seeds as annuals. And like, I don't know, there's things like when you see like marble seed or like baptisias, like some of those really hard seeds, you could see how they could just last for a really long time in the soil. But I don't know.
All the baptisias around here get some kind of weevil. I've been trying to get that the last couple of years.
You got to hit them early before the weevils get them.
Toxie, what you got?
Well, I wouldn't know where to start. So one thing I've always asked about is, and I know there's some out there, I know where a few of them are here, but not many. What is there that actually matures the seed in the spring, like turkey season, or especially early in it maybe, and that is desired by them? So to give you an example, there's all the ag fields here, because the soil's been disturbed and everything, has that, is it wild geranium? Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's yellow, and they always joke around here, at least when you walk across those big fields going to listen in the morning, if you look down in your boots are covered in those 10 little seeds, the turkeys start hitting the field.
Oh, you're probably talking about ranunculus, some of the buttercups.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's yellow. Mm-hmm. A little bit of yellow flower. And, you might look at a 100-acre field and it's just solid yellow. So they're real, they grow real easy. And it tends to be in floodplains too. But I remember going with my buddy Rodney a couple years ago and taking his grandson on youth weekend. It was like the 1st of March. And we're going through this property not far from town here. It's actually a hunt club he's in. And 4 or 5 different places, this beautiful white flower in the 1st of March. And it was, I think I took a picture and talked to Doug. And I had my app. It's some type of pea. But it does have it didn't have but a couple flowers on each one of them. They were in some, big hardwoods that have been select cut maybe 15 years ago. So it's limited, but some sunshine. But I was just thinking, how could we, develop stuff that gave more energy food to turkeys in the spring? Because this is the thing that's happening here. The game's changed completely on their health coming out of winter. Used to be you could just count on, you had a mature stand of like hardwoods, especially in the prairies. It'd be water, willow, cherry bark, those small hard acorns that last all the way through being wet, and they'd last all the way up into the spring, and turkeys would be in the hardwoods. I've talked to a couple of the major landowners around here, and they even say, I can't even remember. It's been 5 years since we even heard a turkey in our big hardwoods.
Because the pigs are eating all of it.
That's right, because our hog population is so bad, they're wiping everything out, even the ones into the soil. We're not even reforesting trees. It's so bad. So there's got to be better alternatives. And the answer is going to be how you can smartly manage your natives. But are there any things, even if I don't know what they are, I'll write them down and go look up on them, and maybe Roundstone can help me, or maybe by the right, habitat management and manipulation, I can bring them to bear. But what are some favorable species for turkeys? And I know a lot of it is bugging, but even then, what could we do to maybe replace some of the stuff that hogs wouldn't eat that turkeys like?
Well, this year we were talking about that river cane earlier. River cane was going to seed during turkey season. That was it's so rare though. That's such a rare one to see go to seed, but it's such a high energy. That's a really high quality food for wildlife. But you're probably going to want to look at spring ephemerals, because spring ephemerals are what really, you're going to have to ask yourself what flowers, what's the first thing out of the year that flowers? It's usually spring ephemerals. On glades, you got things like glade cresses. Those are usually one of the only things that's blooming really, really early. And glade cress seeds, I don't know if I'm sure turkeys would eat them. They're like little flat little discs. They look like flying saucers, but they're tiny.
This little plant that he sent me a picture of, I thought it was going to be a spring beauty, Claytonia.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one.
It is a good one, but it was a type of it was like a native woodland vetch that was growing in the understory, and
yep, and that's a spring ephemeral.
Yeah, those little peas, a couple weeks later,
So the other thing with the deer density too, now the hogs, I mean, what if we wiped out of our plant ecosystem infrastructure that need to be, I know we want to leave what's there, but I mean, are there some things we need to replace that the way we've mismanaged wildlife has taken out? I think I remember when Will Primos had the place in the Delta and you went over there and went for a walk with him, I think, or talked to him, and there was something that, there wasn't a high deer density, and he said,
the Mobile Delta.
Yeah, and it was like a species very preferred and nutritious by deer, and it's akin maybe to soybeans even, but the expanding deer herd wiped them out in the South. Now, I don't know what it was. I just remember him saying that, and even if it was wrong or whatever, it intrigued me to think about the things that have been depleted that we could bring back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well,
I know that's a long answer question, but it's so fascinating to all of us.
A good thing to do is maybe go, like in our area, you can tell a distinct difference between like the rural areas, and then if we go to like Huntsville, to like their public trails where there's a lot of people, they might have high deer densities, but like right along the trail, you'll see a ton of things growing. But once you get into the woods, they aren't growing in the woods, or they're not growing in the rural areas. You can really tell there what deer are after, and like there's one trail that's like solid strawberry bush, both sides. It's like a thicket. Like I'm talking, I've gone there before, and you just pull up thousands of them and not even make a dent. You can't even tell that you got them.
Wow!
Because the deer aren't they won't come to the trail because they smell the humans and all that human activity there, and so you see that and you're like, dang, this stuff's everywhere. And then you get in the woods and it's like hardly any of it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a good way, I feel like, to kind of see what they're wanting.
They love it. I know that. I've grown some before and put a cage around it and watched. It's amazing how much they love it.
Yep.
But yeah, that pig problem's a huge problem.
It's changed everything, and especially here. Some other places, I think, where you've got stuff in that is a little more remote in drainages, it's the worst. Then you get even if you trap them really hard, you get replenished pretty fast, as opposed to something that's a little more upland.
Yeah. Are y'all seeing a lot of pig problems where y'all travel?
Yeah, we're getting more and more on our place. It's they flip over rocks a bunch and eat the salamanders, and you can see like all these rocks flipped. But night hunters have taken care of them for me, unfortunately. I just found a huge boar hog dead on my place last year, and so I guess it's kind of nice that they took care of them for me.
I mean,
Turn loose,
I don't want to
let them at it.
Here's the keys, boys. Have at it.
Yep. But yeah, and Alan almost had some out there last year, and then he had the pen set up, and then the day he put the gate up, they just didn't show back up, and they're back over on the neighbors. But they're we're getting more and more of them, and because we're next to Bankhead, they just come in and out of Bankhead, and it's just impossible to get rid of them all.
So Kyle, why don't you list, if you would, 8 or 10 non-natives that it's making you crazy that you're seeing pop up around the South that
coconut grass.
You need to tend to. Yeah.
Ding, 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 ding.
The worst. Yes. I had to say that so I can listen to what he says to do about
And
it.
I know
I was going to ask that.
and I know y'all deal with people further north of here, so bring a few of those up.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Kogan grass is bad. I found it on my place, and I think it's because I'm close to the interstate, and you just see it up and down I-65. That one's horrible. Man, Bradford pears. I mean, I'm just trying to think on my own places. If I just let it go, and I just stop fighting invasives, well, what's the first thing that's going to come back? And it's going to be Bradford pears, Johnson grass, Lespedeza, like Sericea lespedeza.
I'm fighting common and Sericea right now.
Yeah, Japanese stilt grass.
Oh, that's gotten so bad.
It stresses me out and makes me want to give up. It's that bad. And then I found carpet grass on my place this year too, which is apparently related to Japanese stilt grass. But mimosa in some areas, if I burn it, it'll come up in a solid. It looks like partridge pea. It looks like a carpet of partridge pea. It's
Their
just
seeds are
similar.
probably very similar.
Yeah.
You know, a hard seed coat. The fire probably stimulates it.
but it's just mimosa. And then, man, once you get up in Tennessee and like north of the river in Alabama, you get tree of heaven, and that one's so bad. That one's a real tough one to deal with. And apparently, you just kind of make it worse if you cut it down and treat the stumps. You kind of have to kill them while they're standing, like hack and spray or girdle them. But those are very tough to, notoriously hard to kill.
That may have been what we saw that day we were driving back, Dudley, that you couldn't ID.
Yeah, I think it may have been. There's
What's
something that blooms.
What's the popcorn tree we call it?
Oh, yeah. That's, yeah.
Woo, they're
That's
bad.
They're everywhere, all the way down the river bottom.
But see, a lot of these you name,
Tallow.
tree wise,
Yeah,
Chinese.
so-
They got started by landscape people
Yeah.
selling them.
We don't have that one in where I'm at, Tallow Tree.
It was
They're here.
You want some?
No,
everybody's grandmother used to collect the seed pods for like floral arrangements. It kind of looked like popcorn,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Where's kudzu and privet going to fall into all this?
Yeah, they're bad, but they're also everywhere. So it's like,
Well, at least
I think most people know about those, though. That's the kind of good thing is most people are familiar with how bad
yeah,
they
they
are.
knock them back. But at least they got some nutritional value.
Yeah.
You know, unlike a lot of this stuff has no value whatsoever.
It's frustrating. Another one of those things about having a little bit of knowledge is you go visit a friend's property and they've been burning and thinning and
Yeah.
doing this and doing that, and
And then you're
the
just,
ground is just completely covered in Japanese stilt grass, and you don't really want to break the news to them and
yes.
and make them be like, oh no, but that's.
I can relate there. I feel like I'm just being negative every time I'm going somewhere. But it's also like the other thing is like you can have something like incredible that's like a 10 out of 10, but you can always make it an 11 too. There's like always room to improve and make it better habitat.
Is there a non-native that you say, well, I can live with that one? Oh, that one's doing some good.
You might want to ask him off the record.
No.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of one of the rapid fires.
Yeah, I talked about that. I mean, the oxeye daisy, like I just kind of gave up on it. I mean, it's somewhat showy, or I guess it is pretty showy.
It's beautiful.
So that's one I've kind of just given up on. But let's see. I don't know.
What
Probably
about
some of the blackberries. I mean, like, everybody hates blackberries taking over their pasture, but
So
like,
I think we've got a non-native European blackberry around here.
Yeah.
I've seen it
Yeah.
right
The little bitty bitty,
near the gate to Neil's house. Actually,
right? Just right. But they'll have a bunch of blackberries, but they're teeny. Mm-hmm. They're not terribly sweet like the big ones either.
yeah, and I'm sure those aren't awful for wild. I'm sure wildlife utilize
Right.
those pretty well. So that'd probably be one of the ones that I think would probably be somewhat beneficial to wildlife, and I think it's more so because wildlife already have a similar native that acts the same way.
Right.
Where you get real bad invasives is when it's like a new one that like we don't have any native species that act like that plant.
yeah, they find that niche
Yeah.
that nothing else is taken up.
Yep.
Exactly.
So back on the Kogon grass, what is your treatment for Kogon grass?
Oh gosh, a friend of mine has it. I've only had to treat it once. And I think it's a Mazapir. Is it a?
Pasipir and glyphosate.
Yeah, that's what I was
But,
going to say. A Mazapir glyphosate is what he does like 3 times a year.
And
Yeah,
like double the
just gotta
strength they
stay on it,
recommend
yeah.
too. I noticed.
And this,
Where I've seen we actually had success in one spray and kind of looked like it actually wiped it out, which is rare. It was when they double mixed it.
Yeah.
So for guys listening to this that may be like going to the beach, you may live in Kentucky, driving through Alabama, go to the beach. You'll see it on the side of the interstate, and am I right? It's kind of circular.
Yeah, it
little
grows in a
patches.
circle.
And a lot of times they've got it flagged, so somebody's
It's
trying
too late.
to get
I mean, they're beat down there. It's miles and miles and miles.
Yeah, it's all over.
20 miles straight is taking over the whole roadside. I mean, they gave up.
They were using the same mowing crew from Mobile to Tennessee,
Spread it.
and so we got patches in North Alabama now. It's
amazing, huh?
It's awful.
Just one little fragment on the tire or blades, and it spreads.
Yeah, I got it at my house because I had a guy that was just around with a forestry mower, and I got him to grind 2 stumps, and that's exactly where it came up.
It doesn't like shade. That's one thing that'll kind of slow it down, stop it if you got a canopy. But it's really bad. It's just, you mean, the more you stamp it out, the more it pops up in more places. And
I've been fighting it for 10 years.
you spray it the same way in 5 different places, it wipes it out, and then this one it kills it and it comes right back. You know, it's so frustrating.
So I have used your example several times when I've gone and given little presentations like at the county forestry or whatever. How do you explain to people who have very good intentions, but they are anti-herbicide? How do you preach on that, or how do you explain that to them? Why herbicides may be the only option.
Yeah, it's a tool in the toolbox. I mean, you can use a chainsaw for bad. You can also use it to create a lot of habitat. You can also use it to really destroy your habitat. Same thing with herbicide, same thing with fire, same thing with, just about anything. It's a tool, and it's all about how you use it. And there is it's not black and white. We've seen the damages when you say fire is bad. We see the damages caused by that, by just total lack of using fire. And I think it's going to be the same thing with herbicide. I got, first time I dealt with it, a lot of backlash from it on social media. I was spraying like I don't know, it was probably 20 foot by 20 foot patch of bush honeysuckle in the mountains up by my mom's place. And everybody was like just dogging me. And I'm like, the fact that I'm able to spray it right now while that's a 20 foot by 20 foot patch, and there's no more of it around. You go to Huntsville and those mountains on Montesano, it's just everything, a monoculture of that of that bush honeysuckle taking over the entire mountain.
Yeah.
And so you're saying you'd rather me not spray herbicide and let that happen? Which one's going to be worse for wildlife? I'm spraying every day. I'd spray acres of it to save it from turning into thousands of acres of it. So you're saving you're saving people from having to use a lot more of it in the future if you use a little bit of it today to keep that from happening. So
that's exactly what I was hoping you would say. Perfect.
Speak the truth.
Yeah. Lanny, we're always in here. We always have these interesting guests, and you're always on your computer. What's up?
I'm looking at Onyx the whole time. I love that, but I love the desktop too.
My favorite thing is Bobby doesn't know how to shut his computer down, so I can go in there and share his pins to my account.
That's what you were doing in there this morning.
Yep.
Back during deer season, I shot a couple of big bucks.
Of course.
As I'm looking for them, I can turn on this tracking feature.
Yeah.
And I can see where I've looked.
And I use that feature too for spreading seed, spreading fertilizer, spraying. It really keeps you on track.
Onyx is a great company. Look, we know Jared. They're hunters,
They
just
are.
like we are.
Yes,
So they're
no
serious
doubt
about
about
this. The way they've designed this thing, a hunter and a gamekeeper can take advantage of it and make their property better.
Use coupon code Mossy Oak to save 20% off of your Onyx subscription.
Yeah, and Mac, you shouldn't do that now. Richie, you got to help me. Okay. It's interesting, the battle of natives and the way you do it. Everybody doesn't agree with everything you're doing. So on social media, do you find yourself having people kind of attack you and you have to defend yourself, or do you just kind of let those roll off your back and keep doing what you think is the right thing?
Yeah, I really don't care. I don't get my feelings hurt easy, and you have to be on social media. You just have to not care what people think. I mean, I was a hunter posting videos about flowers, and most people would be like, my whole entire hometown's about to see me start making a page about native flowers, like, and I'm a hunter. Like most people would probably be like, that's a total 180.
Or his buddies,
Yeah, or my buddies,
Not this
Yeah,
buddy won't
but-
accuse it. I
But
am.
now we're doing it.
I just
now
don't-
it's all,
I'm
the-
a wildflower
all
nut.
these guys like, hey, what is this and what is that?
Yeah, but I just don't care what they have to say, But
Sure.
on that note,
Does that come natural, or do you just that's how you've got to be to not care what other people think?
That's definitely a learned behavior. I mean, I used to care, and so I hate to say it, but like you gotta I don't know, you gotta go through. There was like a switch in my life, like when I lost my dad. After that, I went to just like, the worst thing in the world's happened to me. I lost my best friend. Like after that, I could care less what people think about me. So I hate to say that, but like it really is like you get it once you lose a parent and go through something like that, you're like, I can, if I like doing it, I'm going to do it, and I could care less what people think about it.
And I'm going to try to make a difference.
Exactly. Yeah. So
Maturing.
after it was a very maturing. Like I had to mature like overnight. It felt like, and it was the same week I got married. So like I became a husband, a father,
And lost your dad.
had my first house, lost my dad in the same week, and so it was like overnight.
Wow,
I had
that's
to.
a lot.
I went from like being scared to knock on people's doors, like to ask for permission to hunt and stuff, to like I was knocking on doors every day, trying to buy people's timber, and talk to landowners about managing their forests and stuff. And it was like literally that. It was just that fast. I just didn't care anymore. So that's probably not the answer you were looking for,
no,
but
we're
that's-
trying to a little insight into
that-
it.
So did y'all grow up together?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can see that.
yeah.
They kind of finish each other's sentences when they're just hanging out.
Yeah.
Yeah, we Cub Scouts, so kindergarten, first grade.
Yeah.
So he lived in my
I
grandparents'
think 5
neighborhood.
years old, you start Cub Scouts or Tiger Cubs is where we started. So
Yeah, our dads were buddies, and
The Pinewood Derby. I
So-
still remember
that's
that.
it.
So did Kyle pull you to the side and show you all these things like he was?
Yeah, no. So that's kind of interesting. You had asked like who's our inspiration, it had to be Kyle for me, just because he opened my eyes to it, what I had been missing all these years. And y'all had talked on it a little bit earlier when you were talking about these big oak flats and stuff, and I can't tell you how many years I've spent growing up hunting the refuge or hunting public woods around the house, and I would go out and I would look for these big oak flats where I could see as far as I could see. So nothing could sneak up on me, and because that's what you see in the videos. That's what works. And then, a couple years later, Kyle kind of started down this path, and I was like, "You're crazy. That's not how it works," And one day he kind of broke it down to me. It was like late winter, and the acorns had dropped, and what acorns were left were now they're bad. All the good ones are gone. And he's like, "What do you see out there?" Nothing. It's exactly the same thing the deer see. There's nothing. There is no food. There is no. I was like, well, that makes a whole lot of sense. I never thought about that. So then we had a small. What was that spot at your mom's place? Probably an acre.
yeah,
Maybe an acre. We had cut down all the trees. You're right, let it greened up, ran a fire through there, and we had never had turkeys on camera. And the next year we had turkeys on camera.
yep.
So for me, I was like, okay. So there's the proof and the science, right? You didn't give me a fish to feed me for a day. You taught me how to fish, right? So for me, that was a big turning point. I was like, okay, there's more to this. We're doing it wrong, completely wrong. If you just do it the way mainstream tells you to do it.
I also shed hunted a bunch on public land at that time.
Yeah.
We've always both hunted the same piece of public.
And I could never find sheds. I don't. Where are you? He's coming home with 3 or 4 sheds a day.
I was putting on my briar chaps and going into thick, nasty stuff, the grown-up old fields.
Right.
And so then that's where we started hunting too. So it's like, I don't know, that's
But there's a
when it kinda makes
misconception in
sense.
that as well, right? Because you hear people say, "Oh, well, yeah, they're getting the thickest, nastiest stuff because that's where they're covering, that's where they're safe." but it's probably also where there's food. You know, I mean, look how tall a deer is. They can't stand on their back feet long, so it's got to be from about here down.
Well, you think about the position of their head.
Exactly.
It's straight up walking around, even bedding down and stuff, and then they lean down and they're bobbing constantly. It's probably a lot more likely to knock them on off if they're feeding.
Yep.
Probably.
Yeah.
We see them a lot around food plots because that is where there is good food in late winter.
Edges and
Yes.
So, well, it's that statistic, and I always bring it up. People probably gets tired of me bringing it up, but this is one of them that, you know, you hear these little factoids as you go through this journey of whatever, and some of them just stick, you know. This one stuck.
100%.
And you'd have to correct me if I'm wrong. I'm going to try to say it. In an acre of closed canopy hardwood forest, there's anywhere from 50 to 100 pounds of food.
that's Craig Harper's book, that food plot one.
And then in that same acreage of open prairie type forbs, there can be upwards of 2,500 pounds of food per acre. So it's like, oh, okay, that's crazy. That's what more do you need? And it's not just food for deer; it's food for every type of wildlife that's on your property. And it kind of goes back to what Toxie was saying earlier: manage your property correctly for everything, not just one species. If you do that, it'll pay back dividends.
Then you go on.
I'd like to thank the white-tailed deer for getting me into all of this.
Absolutely.
As being a
Shout out
gateway
white-tailed.
drug.
Yeah.
Being deer-centric is what got me here. And then I fell in love with trees, and I wanted trees that drop deer food.
Yeah.
And then I started, what was it? Do you pronounce it Dwayne Estes?
Yeah.
And Jeremy, and then I was seeing Doug Tallamy, and then I started seeing you around, and it was like a switch flipped. And I no longer consider myself deer-centric. Do I still love to deer hunt and kill big deer?
Of course.
Absolutely. But it's like there's a new thing.
I almost enjoy managing for them better than I do.
Right.
It's just like, man, look, this is perfect, right?
And I will.
Then you get the side of it, well, you can have too many oak trees.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, hold on now.
But like, Toxie's question about, all the pigs eating all the willow oak acorns or whatever off the ground, you thin those trees just a little bit and get some sunlight, and then you're going to get little shrubs and forbs and seeds and bugs attracted. And
I was hunting the refuge a couple years ago, and I was in this hot debate with Kyle. I'm like, man, I understand that privet's not native, but deer eat it. And it took me, and I have witnessed a deer eat it. He's like, well, what else was there? And there was nothing
That's
else.
it. But if there was a bunch
I'm
of
like, man.
greenbrier there instead of the privet,
That's
they would be
exactly right.
eating that too, just as much, if not more.
So I was like, oh, man. Okay.
If you go by I saw deer eat it, and that makes it good. I mean, all that really means is it could be worse, and that's really it. So you think about it. Just because you see a deer eat it doesn't really mean anything. It means if you're going to do what's best for the place,
Exactly.
Especially something like anything that takes over. You said it, Kyle. We're talking about, it never stops when he's here. Just questions, talking, different experiences and things we've learned, and sharing pictures of this and that. And he was like, at the end of the day, just the one word people need to remember, and we say it all the time because it reinforces that: diversify. I mean, no matter, even if you're the smartest that ever walked, nature's so complex you'll never get it exactly perfect, no matter who you are. So the average land manager is really void of the kind of information like Kyle has or Dudley. And so the first thing you can do is diversify. Just think in terms of diversify. You don't want the same thing everywhere on your place. And that's pretty easy to remember. I mean,
it's so easy.
Yeah.
Think about, when you start thinking about, how am I going to retire, or when am I, you're not going to invest in one stock. You're going to get a mutual fund or something that's diverse. And it's just as easy as that. It's no different.
Well, you were saying earlier about what to plant for early spring for turkeys. You don't even have to ask yourself that question if you just try to manage for the most diversity of plants. And so you just manage for as many native plants as you can, and chances are there's going to be something flowering year round, something going to seed year round. Maybe not in the dead of winter, but like there's still going to be seeds on the ground that were there from fall. But it's if you diversify, you don't even have to ask yourself those questions. Just focused on making sure you have the most native plant diversity as possible. And that's kind of my measurement for how good a place is how diverse it is. And when you go on those properties that are super diverse, we were up in Missouri a few weeks ago at the Land and Legacy guys' place, like walking in, and they've been managing it heavily for years. And I'm talking, I saw more predators up there than I've ever seen in my life. And I'm like, I saw more coyotes and raccoons on this place than I've seen in the past 8 months in Alabama. But then also, like, there was a ton of deer. There was a ton of turkeys. There was quail. There was just native plants, like the whole, I don't know if there's a acre on that place that they haven't touched. And there's just restoration happening everywhere, and just native forbs and native grasses everywhere on that place.
But it's a good representation of a forest that is balanced. And that's usually what you're dealing with, especially in some of your, public lands, is the situation is a result of a severe imbalance of something, whether it be the entire thing is closed canopy forest, and where it's not, it's water, or the exact opposite. So it's just
if you just heard that sentence, where Luke and I hunt in North Alabama.
And it's crazy to me. So a lot of this is I'm still learning. I mean, if you got questions for me later, I just hope it ain't got nothing to do with plants, because I'm still like picking up on some of that stuff.
Just say it depends.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Diversity.
Fire and grass selective herbicide. That's my two go. I'll just run with that, right?
So Kyle, you keep mentioning flowers, and then having followed you on Instagram for a little while, there's oftentimes my wife will come tell me something I need to do because she saw Kyle talking about. I mean, I get that a lot. But so I'm a guy that I ride down the road and I see a lot of. I love these. I don't know what they're called. They're yellow they look like little mini sunflowers. They're just blooming everywhere right now. That is my favorite of all.
Like that Susan.
But that's what I always grew up calling.
Well, there's a bunch of different yellow flowers, but right now that's highly likely.
Yeah.
There's a lot of gray-headed coneflower right now too.
Yeah,
But
that's what I was saying.
So, can I get out of my vehicle where it's safe and clip some of those? When's the time to do that? And how do you?
when the
replant
cars aren't coming, it'd be a first to start.
Yeah.
But I mean, when do you cut them, and how do you treat them after that? Because I think you do a lot of that.
Yeah, so it depends on the species. It depends. So for like milkweeds, like and like Indian pinks, like when they're ripe, they just explode.
Yeah,
their seeds just explode as soon as they're ripe. So like I put a little, and then milkweed, when milkweed's ready, it opens up, and if you're there on the wrong week, it's all blown away. So like you can put little mesh bags over those after they flower. You get these little mesh jewelry bags with little tie strings. You just put that over it and tie them off, and then whenever the seeds are ripe in a month or whatever, you come back and they're dropped off in the bag. That's the real easy way to do it. Usually I just wait and come back in a few weeks after it's flowered.
So if you cut flowers, and I love to cut flowers, and just say Indian pink gets usually around the 1st of May sometime down here, and if you clip some and take them and put on a little arrangement or something to brighten your wife's day or whatever, especially in turkey season, it gets a few brownie points. And they live for another week. Some things die immediately. Some things respond well to being cut. Is that seed viable?
No.
If you cut it?
If it's still flowering, then it's not going to be a seed. It has to go out of flower. And after it's flowered and pollinated, then it starts turning into a seed. And then you can even collect it at the wrong time then. You got to wait until that seed is ripe. It's like an oak, or a persimmon.
Right.
If you cut a persimmon flower off the limb, is it going to turn into a persimmon fruit? It's the same concept with flowers. And if you cut it off when it's green, are those seeds going to be viable? Maybe some of them, but probably not. You got to wait until it's almost ripe. And so nature kind of tells you when it's ripe. So black-eyed Susans, whenever they're ripe, their seeds will start slowly falling out of the seed head. The Indian pinks, when they're ripe, they start exploding. Milkweed, when they're ripe, it opens up and the wind carries them away. Oaks, when they're ripe, they fall. Persimmons, when they're ripe, they fall. Mm-hmm. Like they start initiating their dispersion method. So with persimmons and acorns, it's to get eaten or buried somewhere. With milkweeds, it's the wind. With
Okay,
But those
so
others, I mean, it's just
He got using his pulpit speech there for a second.
so,
wasn't he?
so if I find some black-eyed Susans that are ready to shatter, like what
But
you're
they'll be
describing.
they won't be yellow anymore. They'll be
the
Right, so
brown.
I've marked them in my mind. I know where
know
they
where
are.
they're
I go back and I have a 5-gallon
Flag 'em.
bucket, and
Yeah.
when I'm cutting them, they're shattering in there.
Yeah.
Then what do I do with the seed?
So then you just go home, make sure they're dried out. If they have any moisture to them, you don't want them to have moisture. I usually just leave them in the bucket for a week.
you wouldn't want to stack it. You want it where they can get air. You want to spread them out probably.
Yeah. My wife says I leave them in the living room for like 3 months, but it's like only a week usually. And then you put it, you can just put them in a Ziploc bag and store them for later, or you can just go ahead and bring them home and put them out wherever you want to put them.
Would you put them in the freezer for a period of time? or
No,
anything?
usually some of them you have to, but like plum pits, I store in the refrigerator. But like most of those seeds, you're okay storing them. I think there's a rule, like the 100 rule. So the humidity and the temperature has to be under 100. Have you heard this, Dudley? So if it's like a 70-degree room, it needs to be under 30% humidity in there.
Oh, okay.
If it's a 50-degree room, it just needs to be under 50% humidity or whatever. I don't know. That's somebody told me that.
That
and
probably varies too from plant
Yeah.
to plant.
I'm sure it does.
A couple of years ago, we had a meeting out at this on the way to Columbus. I can't think of the name. You and I went to
Plymouth-
a marriage retreat
Plymouth
there one
Bus.
time.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
right.
I
Yeah.
remember.
Yep. So,
Not together.
So he found some of that. I can't
I
think
didn't
of
realize
the,
y'all were that close.
Yeah,
I
pretty
can't,
tight.
I can't think of the genus, but it's a yellow flower that's a lot bigger, and I want to say it is
Yeah.
something maxima. It's a little bit more of a Western species that's naturalized here.
Yeah. Maximilian sunflower? Is that right?
No, it's not
I
maxima.
thought it was Mexican hat, is what I thought it was. But anyway,
it's got a stripe around there.
I waited and went back at what I thought was the right time, did it with a bucket, and I didn't get any of it to come up.
Did it too soon.
It was very disappointing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of effort too.
That can happen. It's like there's a learning curve for sure. And even still, like I miss stuff. Like
Go ahead and leave the bucket out there if you're not sure. If they start shattering it, at least some of them will fall in there.
Well, might get some water in there.
yeah.
Pretty sure it was Rudbeckia maxima.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they were beautiful though.
That's a good
Oh,
one.
that was late, but that was late summer.
It was. Yeah.
They are the leaves are really dark and
Giant coneflower.
Yeah, huge like cabbage-like leaves. But that's another circumstance where like after they flowered, just put one of those little mesh bags over it, and then at least you know you got some of them. If you come back and it's too late for the rest, at least you know a couple of those will have dropped seeds in those bags. So.
I tell you, I think a lot of people follow you just out of the stories that you tell and what you're trying to do. There's drama isn't the right word, but you've got some situations that you've got going on that are pretty sensitive, and you're trying to actually save certain areas. Do you get a lot of support? Or a lot of people become wind underneath your wings to help you do more of this kind of stuff?
Yeah. That's I don't like getting into those situations, but it seems to happen more and more, and it's definitely like I think what motivates me to save some of those places is the fact that I've seen so many places like that lost already. Mm-hmm. Like there's a place in Athens that was a 13-acre prairie that was just really, really wet. There's a real wet area along this creek. You couldn't farm it. They cut hay on it once a year in the late summer when it was dry, because that's the only time they get a tractor in there. And it had a species of blue star that's found nowhere else in Alabama.
blue star.
Yeah, blue star and Amsonia, and I think it's a new species of it. And it had wild white indigo everywhere, thousands of mature wild white indigo plants, huge rose mallows. I could go on and on about all the species that were out here. That 13 acres they put up a sign, "Fill dirt wanted," and filled that sucker in with asphalt and concrete and 4 foot of dirt. And I tried. This is back. I might have had 10,000 followers, but I would try to get the county to buy it or the city to buy it and turn it into a little park, and it was just completely lost. There was like a half acre next door that had some of that stuff on it, but it just wasn't as high quality as that was. But after losing that, I'm like, man, I feel like I have to do as much as I can about protecting what's left. And there's some of these places, there's nothing. There's no other place like it in the world. Like, if the places I fight hardest for are the ones where I'm like, go try to find another one. You can't find another place like this in North Alabama. It's like literally the last of its kind. So it's those places like there's one this past year I had to cause a fuss about, and I didn't want it to be that way. But that's what they turned it into. So fortunately we had a lot of people backing us on that and wanting us to, wanting that place protected. And that was another fail on that one. That was a failure, but also, then we have stories like the leafy prairie clover. Alan Summerford bought some of those populations. We bought one of those populations, and in less than a year and a half, 2 years, Alabama had none of its 8 populations of leafy prairie clover managed. I mean, none of them managed. And I mean, there's even like species leads with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service who can get funding and stuff for these populations, but none of them were managed. Now we have 6 of the 8 populations managed, hopefully 7 here soon. But in less than 2 years now, we're managing most of those populations with fire, removing cedars. And that's because people got behind us and bought T-shirts, and we were able to save that place. And so that was a huge win that people were able to get behind us on. And now that's protected. Those places will never, what happened to that place in Athens and the place in Hartselle will never happen to those places, because now they're in the hands of really good landowners who care about them and want to improve those sites. So that's a model we're hoping to just keep replicating.
That's got to feel good knowing you played a big
I
role.
would think so. There you go, Richie.
Yeah, it does. Wow.
And in the future, I guess from a development standpoint, having a city that did decide to save cool natural areas like that.
Yeah. Because you can have that. You can have development and that.
Yeah.
You can have both.
It's going to be more of a draw to make that town a cooler place to live.
Yeah.
And you've got a lot of neat stops, or you have tourists that come and want to see those areas someday.
It just seems to me we'd get too much government regulation and things are up. Not to say that they don't do tons of great stuff, but I think about how hard it's been to build something, because for some reason something that's never been wet in its entire life is deemed a wetland. Then you have to go, in exchange for that, you have to go to mitigation or mitigation bank and trade, so you preserve equal amount of wetland stuff. It would be way more important to preserve the native plant species that you're destroying by development. Having to go somewhere and restore that would mean a lot more to the ecology of this, country than worried about the,
I think there's a lot of good intention in that, but I definitely think it could be tweaked.
Oh, it's better than not having any protection. I'm not saying that,
Right.
but I'm saying we ignore some things I think are even more important.
Agreed. Yeah.
Like what he's talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, this place in Hartselle, 35 acres, they're only developing 17 acres of it. And then the other 17 or whatever is going to be left as like marginal space. And it was untouched. When they completed the pad for the building and everything, that 17 acres was untouched. And all they had to do was just leave it alone. I mean, it was already incredibly diverse. Didn't even need anybody to come in and plant wildflowers. It was already that showy. And I begged the city, I begged them. I was like, this is something our city could be proud of. This is an example of how development can happen, and you can have both. Well, they destroyed both halves of it for no reason. I mean, they would have saved money by not
pushing it all out or whatever.
Yep.
I mean, with that particular case, they could have gotten an enormous financial gain by putting it in an easement. Then you could never touch it.
Yeah.
Because the way I understand it, the more highly developable a piece of land is, the more you're going to get paid to put it in an easement to preserve it forever.
It could have been some kind of tax.
Oh my gosh!
Shelter to protect it or something.
Yeah, and I would have absolutely praised them for that too.
Oh yeah.
That's something our community could have been proud of. But
Well, look, let's ask him a trivia question.
All right.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, Richie. So we've got a trivia question. Don't we?
Yep. Yeah.
I'm
trivia
not.
question.
I'm not done with questions though either.
Well, gather them all up. We'll come back.
You're
after this.
never going to be done with questions
Yeah,
with
for
him
real.
here.
Our trivia question is brought to us by who?
The peanut patch.
Oh, look, we've got a bunch of peanut.
Yeah, we're gonna be
cans
giving
of
some
peanuts
away.
to give
So
away.
Yeah.
as
good.
a
They're so
prize.
good.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
make great product.
We ate one can.
You
last
ate
night.
2 cans
About
yesterday.
four-
I
Y'all got
saw
some
you.
cans?
Richie, you stay in the back.
What?
Bobby really loves to embarrass people, so be careful.
All right. Our listener today, winner Chris Matthews, 86090.
8.
Left a
Chris
review
Mann.
there on YouTube.
What's he gonna win?
Yes, a good
Some
question.
peanuts.
Some
We're
peanuts.
gonna send him some cans of peanuts. Yeah.
All right, here. So Alabama's name deriving from the Choctaw Indians, meaning what?
Who that is actually. I don't know if you have the right answer or not.
Ooh,
Maybe not.
I love it.
That's when you asked. I had to look at him.
Is it Chickasaw or Creek? Maybe.
Well, this is Mitchell came up with this question. Now.
Well,
Dun, dun, dun.
And he's an Alabama native.
so what I always heard was brush clears or thicket clears is what Alabama means.
Well, he killed it. Yeah.
Is that right? Or?
well,
Thicket clears
that's what we
are
had. Yeah.
But from anthropologists at Auburn told me that they think it's maybe more like fruit gatherers.
herb gatherers.
Yeah.
We got
Okay.
Herb
old-
gatherer.
he got it both ways.
Yeah, he did. He killed it.
Yeah. Mitchell, you have to do better on your
Yeah, you
question
gonna,
next
especially
time.
when
Bobby,
Kyle's
it's
here.
okay when they get it right.
Yeah,
He seems like
I guess it's not like
he
a
feels like
contest.
it's such a competition.
Did you
It's just
doubt
kind
me?
of
Did you
win.
doubt me, Bobby?
No, I never
I
did
didn't.
doubt you.
Okay.
I did, but I was just for all the times that I've been trying to do something and my wife come out there and tap me on the shoulder. Kyle says you need to do it this way. I was just kind of wanting to get a little, you know.
Something.
Well, hey, that was like
He's gonna
maybe
take it home. Like, well, Kyle won't know everything.
that fact was in maybe one of my first 20 videos. I talked about that, but I don't know if I've even talked about that since.
Ah, there you go. Cool, Mitchell.
I love I do love and I want to make sure I do this right because we've got friends, but the Native American names that we all have in our communities.
Oh, it's really
I
cool.
love those.
Yeah, lots of it in Mississippi and Alabama, too.
All
Shout
over.
out to Mississippi for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mississippi has a lot more, and that's something I notice when I come over here.
Yeah, we got a lot.
As soon as you cross the state line, you can start looking at the map on your dash, you know. And I'm just like trying to pronounce because I know the next one's going to be just as interesting as the next, you know. And I'm
Yeah,
like, I
and
have to.
we live in Morgan County, but it's supposed to be Catawba County, and then they changed it to, I guess, a more European name.
And a lot of those words have kind of been changed over the years too. You know, like we have an Atala here. You guys have an Atala, if that's how you pronounce it, but it is spelled a little bit different.
Yeah.
Tom Bigby.
Yeah.
If
You
you
know,
look
the
on the
Etowah?
old maps, it's got a couple of different spellings.
But that is the white man's way of spelling that. You know?
That's right.
So before we go back to just a few more questions, we've had a number of people over the last few months leave reviews that have questions in the reviews, and we don't necessarily have a way to answer those questions. We'd love for you to leave reviews, and I'd rather you not leave a question in the review, but if you have to, we're going to start having Mitchell pull these up, and we'll try to answer them real quick. This won't take long, but Mitchell, what you got?
So the first big one was, how do I leave a review?
Ah.
So whatever podcast platform you use, there's usually 3 little dots or a write a review link, and it goes right on there. It gives us a 5-star rating, please. And
Always.
then you write your review.
Yeah, and just be honest, whatever you think about us. You know.
As long as it's 5 stars, you're welcome. You're welcome. Yeah, I get it. Sure.
And Mitchell, I had noticed one. There was a guy when we had Twinkie and the nutrient guys on talking about spraying. A guy asked a question: what was the water conditioner they recommended? And that I looked that back up. That was called Choice Trio. So hopefully you're listening. You got that answer. And what else have you got, Mitchell?
So the first one I found was, if you have a lot of box stands on your property, are they good to hunt predators in and keep the scent down?
Lanny, I'm gonna look at you on that one.
Well, I wouldn't see why not.
You could put a turtle box on the outside.
Yeah.
And
call them right on in.
Yeah, and with your windows shut, it might help your scent control.
Yeah.
Why
I mean,
not?
still play by the wind.
Always play by the one,
100%.
special predators.
But there's no question it would help some at a minimum.
Yeah.
Sure.
I would have the collar on the outside though, not up in there.
Oh,
with
yeah,
it.
for sure.
Yeah. What else?
So when you're trying to be a gamekeeper and trying to grow big deer, What do you do when the biggest deer you've had a shot at is only 3 years old? Do you let him walk, knowing your neighbors will get him, or just let him go?
Knowing your neighbors will get him.
Wait. Let them. Take a swing at that.
This is a hard question.
That's a
Don't
tough
ask
one.
us.
Right there.
Yeah.
Knowing your neighbor would get him.
Well, I let one walk 2 years ago. It was a 12 pointer. I mean, I had pictures of him every day on the saddle on my property. It was me and Alan, neighbors, made a decision together that we were going to let him walk. And then they were logging on my place this year, so they pushed him off, and the neighbor shot him. But it was our neighbor's daughter, and I had no hard feelings. I was happy for her. So to me it's like I don't know. I found it shed last year too, so that was I don't know, good enough trophy for me, I guess. But I don't know. I think it really depends on where you're at. We had the cover. We had all the cover around, so like we kind of trusted that it wasn't gonna get shot 2 years ago, and it didn't, because it stayed on us because we had the cover. But then this year we pushed it off of us, and they went to the neighbors. So it's really just depends. I think you need to evaluate whether you have everything that deer needs, or if it's spending a lot of time on your property or on the neighbor's property. And so,
If it's the biggest deer you've ever seen,
shoot
I
it.
would question that it's truly a 3-year-old to start with, and maybe it is. But if it's truly the biggest deer you've ever seen, unless you have a pretty large property to protect it from your neighbor, what's the harm? And if you're going to be so fired, I mean, just to let him get another year or two older because the numbers are higher on his score. I mean, if you are overjoyed with that deer, that's the point.
That is
Kill
the
him.
point. 100%.
They get you excited.
Yeah.
But you can't kill him as a 5-year-old if you shoot him as a 3-year-old. So
No, it's
you've
true.
got to make that decision.
That's right.
That's-
It depends. I guess
Neither
is
can
what
your
we're
neighbor.
saying. Yeah.
But you're
And
gonna.
how do you know it's a 3-year-old or 4-year-old too? The average guy is, including me, a lot of times, is not quite that good.
Yeah.
Once they get up over 3 or so.
Well, you send a tooth in. Remember we had them a couple
Oh, we
weeks
did
ago?
have a
Yeah.
tooth in. Had a lot of response from that.
And this is an option too. Go talk to your neighbor.
Yeah.
There you
Yeah,
go.
it's the best option of all.
Yeah. That's a great recommendation.
That really was. That's wisdom coming from
Look
the
at
couch.
Kyle.
over
Throwing it down up in here.
And then maybe either one of you have a chance of shooting him when it's bigger. So.
Well, so what he's thinking is, my neighbor may not know about this deer.
Do I tell him?
They probably do.
That's
they
what you start
probably
the
do.
conversation. You seen any good deer on property?
And he's like, maybe he's seen the deer I'm talking about.
No, I ain't really
you
seen much
say-
of nothing.
The trick is to never actually lie, but they never quite tell it all either. 'Cause turkey hunters are really good at that. Just
Professionals.
naturally, yeah.
I think if you're going to kill that deer and then feel like you have to defend it to everybody, then maybe you need to rethink pulling the trigger. But if you're going to shoot it and just be fired up about it,
Let her rip.
I grew this thing. We
But I think
did this. We did this. He came in from where I thought he was going to come in from. It was an exciting hunt, and I let the air out of him. And
That's part of
watched
the
him
problem
fall,
with
you
all
know.
that, though, right? Is that if who are you to criticize somebody for the size of deer they shot? If they did everything right, at the end of the day, they outsmarted an animal whose main objective is to survive.
That's right.
And they know the woods better than you, and they can smell better than you, and they can see and they can hear. So you did everything right, and if you were there when you're supposed to be, then I believe that the good Lord put that deer in front of you and it's your place to shoot it.
There you go.
And if you let it walk, then you let it walk. But don't get mad later in the season when you're still empty-handed.
That's,
And your neighbor
honestly,
shoots it.
That's where I've been. I'm
That's
like,
the
oh,
most
shit.
important thing. I've been 100 times. Don't, if it's someone you had a guest, I mean, if they did something purposefully wrong, don't invite them back. But don't make a fuss over it. I mean, no matter what you do, honor that deer's life if you take it.
That's a good point. That's right.
No matter what, no matter how mad you are, don't be regretting. I should have let him go. If you're going to decide to take the deer's life, or if someone else
Be
does,
proud of him.
Don't act up over it. Man, I see the most idiotic behavior I've ever seen over deer, one way or another, and that's just ruins what. Think about the deer. We ought to be doing honor to them. We're the one taking their life and all. So I would just say, whatever you do, be at peace with it. And if you let them go and someone else kills them, you made that decision to grow. I will say one of the wisest deer biologists I've ever known would always say in those instances, just remember, take a breath. The same exact genetics that created that deer are still right there, and it's likely very close to that, pop right back up again, if not the next year. So don't get too caught up in that.
Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say, I had a pretty good deer season here in Mississippi. So,
Hey, that's part of it. We weren't going to talk about that.
we weren't going to talk about it. I'm okay with talking about it. Look, I was down to the last wire. I was down to the wire, and I made I was like, that's a big.
But you were charged.
That's a
with,
big doe right there.
Thinning the herd. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but so the example of that is like, well, how did you word it the other day? Don't skip on the first day what you take on your last.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's a long rule right there.
Yep.
Yeah. It
Absolutely.
is.
So that's what we did.
Because it got down, and then if you don't, then you get down to the wire and you mess up, and that's what happened this year. But he tasted good.
Hey, they always taste good. That's the one thing
I'll
about
tell you
it.
what, those 3-year-old bucks sure do have a lot more meat than a doe. I know that.
They do.
A lot, especially in the South.
Nothing wrong with burger.
Nope. No.
All right, Mitchell, you got? Is that all of them you had for today? All right, so if we didn't get to you, if you've left a question, we'll get around. We're going to start cleaning.
We're gonna be
those
more
up.
responsive.
And we
That's right.
appreciate y'all leaving reviews. We just
Absolutely.
appreciate the heck out of folks listening and they commenting and like when asking these questions. Dudley, have you got some more questions?
I got one more. Trey Anderson wants to know: does soil need to be fertilized to grow natives? And I think he's referring to forbs and grasses, not necessarily trees.
I think it can hurt you in a lot of circumstances. I'm not going to say it depends again, but it really, I think if you have a lot of your site prep's going to play a big role in it. But like in my pasture that I converted from fescue to natives, if I fertilized, I feel like goldenrod would have really become rampant and like kind of taken over the planting. So sometimes the issues you have with invasives, I think, can kind of be exacerbated if you add fertilizer versus not adding fertilizer. And I don't know, maybe that's probably something that should be studied. I don't know if anybody out there has actually put in some plots and tried comparing the differences.
Well, there's different fertilizers, like three different major components in the fertilizer. I can see if you're worried about any grasses responding, just lay off the nitrate and So that's different. And then there's the time of year, because something's kind of taken over this part of the year. Then you could bring it on to kind of even get more of it. But it's pretty complicated to say yes or no to that one.
Right. And those plants have been, they've evolved for gajillions of years without being fertilized. But on the same note, we've degraded a lot of our soils in the last couple hundred years. So I have found when I try to fertilize and push things along that it ends up being more of a pain dealing with the after effects.
I'll tell you this:
most instances
in the plantings that we install for some pretty high end clients. I mean, there's a lot at stake. There's a lot of money going into these. We don't fertilize, and it's very poor, compacted, topsoil that has a bunch of junk in it, and natives do just fine on it. So. I don't know. Maybe it's different for different areas. So,
there's your answer. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good stuff. I tell you, I've enjoyed listening today. Kyle, you and Luke. I would encourage folks to, if they don't already. You've got a great following. You got way more folks than we do. Can you send some of your folks over our way?
I was about to say.
I thought you were just going to compliment your wife because she follows me.
Yeah, well, she does. She hangs on every word you preach.
Yeah. Does she follow you too, though?
No. She doesn't even listen to the podcast.
I have people that don't hunt or fish or garden or anything send me y'all stuff and I'm like, he's in my feed 40 times a day, but I'm glad he's in yours.
Well, we've got some big news, so we're working to have a little bit of a partnership with a podcast.
A lot of a partnership.
So that's news to come on down the road, but that's exciting. We're certainly proud to help there, and we know
excited.
it'll be good.
Yeah, we've been needing to get back into it for a long time, so excited to get back into some long format stuff. So it'll be fun.
I say it all the time, when the smoke clears and everybody's trying to make a living and grow the business and do things that we do. But when you can look back on your life, and I'm getting old enough to look back on a lot of it, and know that you've made a difference in the things that you love. And the things that I love are multiple. It's not just one thing. What more can you ask for, honestly? Everything else comes and goes. So, I mean, I can't imagine. And the thing that excites us is that the things that matter the most to us that we want to look back at are the same things. Those values are so aligned, and so we're really excited about. Not to mention, like I said earlier, this is the one. I guess I know I make bold statements, but it may be the most important misunderstood component of owning land and managing land and having a hunting club and having a place to hunt and all the things we represent and speak to. So I would encourage everybody to start somewhere. Start with just trying to take one of these apps and learn what's on your place, if nothing else, for now.
I agree with that.
And get down that road a little bit, because you're going to get more enjoyment and more results by. I'm not saying that you don't include all the things we talk about, but this one is most often left out, and it's the most important. So what does that tell you? Pay attention.
It does. Pay attention, Laney.
I'm trying.
I'm trying to talk to you, Laney. Pay attention.
Pay attention.
All right, guys. This has been a lot of fun. Richie, hey, wake up over there, Richie. Is there anything else we need to cover?
I saw, by the way, I saw Bobby's eyes close a little bit during a meeting yesterday. I couldn't quite get a picture of it.
That's when I was talking. That's when I was talking. I saw the same thing.
Look,
I almost got a picture.
He's a pappy now. Congratulations.
And I was going to send it straight to Richie.
So, hey, too, I got to tell on Bobby, you appreciate this. He's come over from the dark side of I'm a rough, tough, big game hombre, and he's been asking me questions about growing zinnias.
I have,
and Bobby has a patch of zinnias for his wife and to cut flowers now and all. And you come over
He's
to
coming over to the flower side.
Yeah, to the light
it.
side.
Yeah.
It's not all about Hercules.
No,
well,
but he's
maybe
a big
it is.
part.
Wait a minute. I didn't ever say it wasn't about Hercules too.
I said all about.
Yeah, he's just added a new dimension, and I thought I was pretty impressed.
He's diversifying.
He's got a strip of native wildflowers too.
I do, a little corner, and the bee balm is the only thing I know to call it. It's gorgeous.
It
kind
is
of purplish.
Love it.
But evidently the deer don't like to eat it because they just leave it alone.
But it's okay.
Don't
It's
start talking. We'll be here another couple hours. We start talking about it.
Yeah, I would like to say to my daughter and my son-in-law,
yes, sir.
I was just so proud of them, and Charlie, this is the little grandson. So
we're so happy for y'all.
Chill bumps for Bobby, talking about what you love the most. There it is.
Yeah.
But I came home from that experience tired. That's probably one of my eyes.
So we're going to rename the Ponderosa?
No.
No, what? No. Okay. Never
All
mind.
right. So I'm looking around. Richie, you got anything else?
Hey, I was just going to say, keep an eye out, Outdoor Channel.
Yeah.
New season of Gamekeeper TV's
coming on out.
Right around the corner.
Got a whole bunch of episodes coming out.
That first episode's about Clover. That's a good one.
Yep.
Kyle, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
It's awesome what you do. You really
thanks
are
for what
an
you're doing
awesome human
out there.
being. Luke, you're going to be helping and doing all kind of good things.
What I can, yeah.
We just want to wish y'all all the luck. If y'all need any help with anything, we could trade you, Dudley, for a player to be named later at any time. If you need something.
It'll have to be 2 draft choices, though.
Yeah. It would.
All right. Why don't you say goodbye, Dudley?
Goodbye, Dudley.
Get us out of here, Richie.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the Gamekeeper Podcast. And be sure to tune in again. Subscribe to Gamekeeper Farming for Wildlife magazine, and don't miss the Mossy Oak Properties Fistful of Dirt podcast with my good buddy, Ronnie Cuz Strickland.